turmoil in the Republican Party. However, in the Democratic Party, it lacks a metaphor. Mrs. Clinton, the dominant candidate for money, for organization, for skills, for experience, for resume, for name recognition. Mrs. Clinton has a 100% name recognition in the solar system. Enceladus, New Horizons, sending pictures back from Pluto, knows who Mrs. Clinton is on its way out to the Kuiper Belt. So, how is it that Mrs. Clinton's poll numbers continue to deteriorate as if it's a vortex and she can't stop it? Physics is pulling her polls down. I gave you the one about Democratic-leaning women. The question here is Joe Biden. So I start with John Fund. Joe Biden, we get different dates and different looks. Now Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden has said that she is not objecting to the vice president's decision to run. The White House certainly has already said as much. So, Mr. Fund, the date, October 1st, is he in or does he stall more?
Joe Biden is running. He will probably announce sometime later in October.
And he will run for the presidency against Mrs. Clinton, and the Clintons know this already, correct? They don't not know anything.
The sharpening of the knives has begun.
And Mrs. Clinton's campaign will fight hard, will go after him, oppo, or are they going to stand on the stage and admire each other?
They will be restrained as long as they can be because they recognize that while Biden takes most of his votes away from Clinton, that Bernie Sanders is an unacceptable vessel. So they will monitor Biden, and if they think they have to go after him, it will be scorched earth because they realize that Clinton has a base, no matter what her legal problems are, probably of about 35% of the Democratic primary. And in an winning ugly, she could still win with 35-40% of their primary vote. I
like it. I always like the idea of winning ugly. I've only ever read it in fiction, but here it is. David, Biden's in. The Democratic Party, do they dominate the airwaves? Does even Fox have to reprogram if Biden's in?
I think they might try and get a hold of one of those debates, even though the DNC probably won't give it to them.
Oh, Las Vegas. Won't that be a gambler's delight with Biden in?
I know. Look, I think if Biden runs at this point, basically what he's saying is, number one, I'm not waiting for Hillary to completely implode, and number two, it's just gonna roil the whole thing because now you have a sitting vice president against the president he works for, first Secretary of State. I mean, it's the Republican Party, you have all these different figures of different ages and this, that, and the other. But this is a family food fight like no other, with just historic figures. It's going to be something to watch.
You would have to say that Joe Biden's candidacy would be a vote of no confidence for Mrs. Clinton, wouldn't you, David?
Oh, without a doubt. And this means also that he is hearing from enough of the party insiders that we support you and, we're there for you. I mean, this just means everybody's had enough of the Clinton drama, at least enough of them, to create this opening. Because no way Joe does, the vice president just does this on his own at this point in his career with everything he's been through with his family, just because. It wouldn't happen.
Thaddeus, you have a question for our guest.
Yes, as much as I enjoy this Woodstock generation's Gotterdammerung on the Democratic Party, the question would be, how does this entry of Mr. Biden, should the vice president actually do what John Fund is saying, affect Bernie Sanders?
John?
Well, Bernie Sanders will hold on to most of his vote, but he, I think, like Donald Trump, has a ceiling on anger. And there's only so much of the Democratic Party that is willing to go over the cliff with all flags flying and nominate a socialist. So I think Bernie Sanders is capped if Biden is in the race.
David?
Yeah, and I have to think that, look, Bernie Sanders so far has really been, forget the other candidates, really been the only choice if you didn't want to vote for Clinton. But if you have Vice President Biden running on Barack Obama's legacy of Obamacare and the Iran deal and everything else, all of a sudden the party has an extension of Obama, that real progressive wing, and they don't have to necessarily vote for Sanders. And then now they certainly, for the concerns about whether they should try and nominate a socialist, They don't have to do that now. So Biden becomes actually a safe harbor for a lot of different Democratic constituencies.
Quickly, gentlemen, we have about 30 seconds. David, does this change the matrix for the Republicans with Joe Biden candidacy sitting over there as a possible rival?
I think it does, but there are two ways to play this, because Biden's numbers have been pretty good against the Republicans, which should scare the Republicans into nominating an electable candidate. But if it roils everything a lot, and then it still gives them an excuse to not have to think about electability, and so, depending on how that goes, it impacts things.
Mr. Funn, we have about 20 seconds. Do you think the Biden candidacy changes the Republican choice for a winner?
When Biden enters the race, it lowers the chances Hillary Clinton is the nominee, which means it gives a boost to Bush's candidacy. The biggest problem Jeb Bush has is voters will not want to make a choice in the fall of 2016
Bush and Clinton.
Between Bush and Clinton, so it helps Bush.
John Funn, David Drucker, Thaddeus McCotter. I'm John Batchelor.